Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today we're going to take a look at the positive and negative aspects of the soon-to-be released 3rd edition of Horus Heresy. There has been a lot of grumbling from the community and from various online heresy personalities, and I thought it would be interesting to put out a positive counterpoint to those arguments. Originally, I was going to give equal time to the negative and positive aspects in this video, but one of my new Patreons pointed out that plenty of people had already done this, so it probably wasn't necessary. They reminded me that I'm here to bring some positivity to heresy, and to let others focus on negative speculation. Before we get into it, a quick reminder that the Blackbriar Gaming Discord and Patreon are now live. Check the video description below for links to both. I'd like to thank my new Patreon members for supporting the channel. These members have just gotten their first taste of the Patreon exclusive content I'll be releasing. All very exciting, but let's get back to it. At the risk of once again being accused of toxic positivity by strangers on the internet, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are risks and downsides with a new edition. Chiefly, I see 3 main concerns worth mentioning. 1. The first and foremost critique of the new edition is that we have to buy new books, and they're not cheap. There's really no counterpoint to this. GW's insistence to attach a monetary barrier to their rules is frustrating. I get why they do it. It's a steady stream of income, one I personally don't mind investing in, noting I'm still using heresy armies I built in 2013, but I can see why many, especially those that have bought any of the more recent heresy books, aren't overly excited about this new investment. Linked to this is the concern about the release of army-specific rules. We know we're getting 5 levers straight away, which is a great improvement on 2nd edition, and a PDF for the Talons of the Emperor. But it sounds like players of Demons and Militia will have to wait a few months for their rules, which is a tad rude. Secondly, I want to talk about the Churn. Heresy 1st edition lasted a decade. The kind of gamers that Heresy attracts, often those who don't get to play all that often, no doubt appreciated this slower pace. Maybe not quite decades slow, but at least slower than 3 years. These same gamers likely aren't overly excited about a 3-year cycle of rules refreshers, and it's not an unreasonable stance. 3 years isn't long. However, I think 2nd edition had some fundamental problems, both in base rules, Legion balance, and the approach GW was taking to expansion books. This last one is certainly what killed my passion for the game. Now, when you're working with a printed rule set, making adjustments and rebalances with old rulebooks, making it work is almost impossible. If GW went down the route of digital rules, it would certainly solve this issue. But as a counterpoint to my counterpoint, I do love a good, thick, full-color rulebook. It's a tough one. Thirdly, it's important to mention people's hesitance around a new rule set. Even if your units are legal in a new edition, and GW have clarified that all units will be playable, they can sometimes go from being the mainstay of your army to rather mediocre on the tabletop. Similarly, people sometimes just aren't that interested in learning a whole new rule set, especially one that initially seems to have more complexity to it than the previous edition. To this I say, let's wait and see what happens. Negative speculation in this space doesn't help anyone. Now, there's plenty of negativity flying around outside of these 3 concerns, but for the most part, that's either opinions on the new models, which I personally think are fantastic, or baseless speculation on directions the new edition will take. So take those 3 concerns that we actually can be sure about for what you will. I understand each of them and I can empathize, but I won't dwell on them, because I'm here for the hype, the excitement, and the positivity. So in the hope of shifting some minds and soothing some angst among the heresy community, let's look at the good that will come from this new edition. Number 1, a shiny new box set. I love a big box set, packed full with new miniatures. We're getting, I think it's like 6 new units and or miniatures with this box set, and without a new edition, you just don't get this kind of box out of Games Workshop. I'm 100% getting my hands onto some Sat 9 action, and I'm pretty sure a large portion of the community has the same plan. Because that box is absolute fire. I had my doubts, but those alternate Praetor builds and Saturnine Terminators in other Legion paint schemes has me sold. I am all in. 2. A rebalance of the armies. Overall, the balance between the 18 legions wasn't abysmal, and I bet if you're an Imperial Fist player, you loved 2nd edition. However, if you happen to play Salamanders or Emperor Forbid Thousand Sons, your experience may have differed. Further to that, if you had an Automata-heavy Mechanicum army, you have had a real rough few years. A new edition is an opportunity to rebalance the legions and the other armies of Horus Heresy, and hopefully breathe some fresh life into legions that have fallen out of popularity. 3. A horde of new plastic miniatures. Games Workshop will want to capitalize on the hype around the new edition. From the drop site preview alone, we've seen a plastic Fellblade, Tarantula sentry guns, rapiers, Mark II assault marines, breaches, and what may very well be rescaled Cataphracti Terminators, not to mention some extras for Custodes and Mechanicum. New editions means new miniatures, and that's something I can be excited about. The Heresy release schedule has ebbed and flowed over the last 12 months, but I certainly wouldn't call it inspiring. The next 12 months, well, I think that's going to be an absolute party. 4. New ways to play. While a lot of us play for the narrative, the Heresy community has very much worked out what works on the tabletop and what does not. And even when deep in a narrative, people still want to be able to win. Infantry-heavy armies backed up by a contempted dreadnought or two and a smattering of las cannons is a pretty common sight. New rules will provide new opportunities for armies to look a bit different and for games to feel fresh again. Likewise, we can likely expect new missions, new objective types. It's really about breathing new life into a game. 5. New lore, new art, and new campaign books. My biggest gripe with the way Games Workshop handled 2nd edition was the campaign and expansion books. Exemplary Battles of the Age of Darkness Volume 1 was so poorly received, they never made a Volume 2. The Siege of Chthoniya only really included 2 legions, and was about a conflict no one cared about. I think they started to pick up their game by the end of the edition, but it was just a bit too late. Now, with the release of 3rd edition, they've apparently learnt their lesson, and they're coming out of the gate swinging with a campaign book based on the Isfahan 5 massacre. Number 6. New players. Jumping into a game system as a brand new player when you're a dozen books deep into an edition is pretty daunting. A new edition is always a draw card for new players, and the bigger Heresy gets, the more the game system gets supported. Take this opportunity to get Learn to Play events and slow grow campaigns happening at your local game stores and get those new players in the door. Let's keep this amazing community growing. Number 7. Army building. So now we're getting into the controversial space. This is going to make some people mad, but hear me out. We know 2 things at the moment around army building, and only 2 things. There's a lot of speculation, but that's not what I'm here for today. We know that GW wants to make army building more flexible, and thanks to Heresy Hammer and their image-enhancing abilities of some of the sneak peeks we got on the drop site preview, we know that there will be force organization charts. It's still going to be a thing. And the concept of primary and secondary force organization slots was mentioned. I want 3 things from army building. 1. A structure that encourages balance. GW have mentioned that balanced forces will receive bonuses, I imagine in the forms of rules of some type. Now, will GW get it right? We'll have to wait and see, but we can't currently say they won't with any real certainty. So why not be a glass half full kind of person about it? 2. The flavor. We don't currently know if Rites of War or a similar mechanic that themes list towards certain legions will be included in the new edition. GW simply haven't mentioned them, but they also haven't said they won't. Here's the issues with Rites of War in 2nd edition though. Sometimes they were just bad. Either the benefits were negligible or the restrictions were too costly. I really liked the concept of them, but the execution was somewhat inconsistent. I'm hoping we see something similar to Rites of War, but potentially with not as many restrictions and negative effects. 3. Flexibility. We need a system that enables us to build an army to an imagined theme. I want to be able to build my jet bike dominated army, or an army of all Terminators, or a force that uses drop pods in a way that actually makes sense. It sounds like 3rd edition is going to be the edition that lets us do this. Now, yes, I acknowledge there's a risk. There's a chance that certain gamers will take advantage of a more flexible system to build armies that are not enjoyable to play against. But 2nd edition had the absolutely broken rite of war that was the Fury of the Ancients. And you know what? I only ever played against a single person who ran it. Then I moved on with my life. As I've said, I'm here to be positive. That includes giving our community the benefit of the doubt. I don't think our community is interested in tabling each other by turn 2. I think they're interested in creating beautiful thematic armies that are fun to play and to play against. An increased level of flexibility enables this. Instead of spreading world-ending vitriol about gamers taking advantage of a more flexible army building system, why aren't we talking about the opportunities it might create to build cool new themed armies that weren't possible under 2nd edition? Half glass full, people. Now, number 8. Rules with more granularity. Less page flipping and more cinematic moments on the tabletop. Another controversial call out, but if you're still here and haven't resorted to abusing me in the comments, you're clearly along for the ride, and I thank you for that. I've seen some great memes about the potential complexity of the new edition, and look, yes, a few new unit stats, each with specific uses, will require some learning. This is the cool willpower and intelligence that I'm talking about here. But you know what? When the majority of units across the game system are Space Marines with almost identical stats, I think you can afford some extra differentiation, particularly if it's better representing the nature of leadership versus psychic abilities, which I am absolutely here for. Let's be honest, no one is playing a Games Workshop game for its streamlined and simple rule set. I'm sure we'll adapt. Furthermore, the extra stats on units were labelled as advanced, and it appears that the How to Play book that comes with the new box set didn't even include them. So, there's very much a way to play the game without them if you're finding it too complex. I'm personally excited for the new way in which weapons are written. From what we've seen, there will either be significantly less or perhaps not any universal rules for weapons. This is something I can definitely get on board. Having to reference 3 or 4 different pages in the rulebook to find out what a single weapon does is an absolute pain. Even the damage mechanic has me hopeful that we'll see the end of the instant death roll, which was very much a gatekeeper for certain types of armies and resulted in players leaning towards specific weapon choices for their units. I yearn for a world where not every character in a Legion army is armed with a Thunderhammer. To those gamers saying that a damage mechanic will result in vehicles having wounds or in some kind of damage versus wounds arms race, not wraith, I say relax. There's nothing to suggest either of these things are true. The cinematic moments that GW has alluded to in regards to new rules around how characters will duel sounds like a good bit of fun. There's nothing more anticlimactic than when your 300-point Praetor gets into combat with each other, and it's just a process of seeing who fails their single armor save against that inevitable Thunderhammer I mentioned before. Will enhanced character duels add time to the game? Probably, but once again, we're not playing GW games for their tight game time. We're here for the narrative, for the spectacle, and I think some better rules around character duels only adds to the whole experience. Alright, that'll do for now. I've offered 3 concerns I think are valid, but to which I feel I offered some valid counterpoints, and 8 reasons I'm hyped for the new edition. Change is scary, but when you have the opportunity to wildly speculate about something, why choose to do so in a negative manner instead of a positive one? If we don't know either way, let's take a breath and let each other be excited about the game we're passionate about. In the end, if I'm going to be accused of something, I think toxic positivity isn't so bad. But more important than all of this is that you keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for heresy.